Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been working at this retail store for about 3 years now. I picked up extra shifts whenever I could, which means I often work the closing shift after my morning classes. Rolling my own cigarettes has been my way of saving a bit of money. It costs about a quarter of what packed cigarettes do, and every dollar counts when you're putting yourself through college. Last Tuesday started like any other day. I was on my second shift of the day, having already spent 6 hours in lectures that morning. Around 8 p.m. I decided to take my break. Our store policy only allows for 10-minute breaks during evening shifts, so I usually just go to my car to have a quick smoke. I headed out to my car, which was parked right in front of the store. The parking lot was pretty empty, as it usually is on weekday evenings. I got in, rolled down my window halfway, and pulled out my cigarette tin. Inside was my roller, tubes, and tobacco. Nothing fancy, just the basics. I was just about to roll my cigarette when I heard someone screaming. A massive woman, easily over 6 feet tall and 300 pounds, was practically shoving her face through my car window, screaming that I was doing drugs in front of her child and threatening to call the police. Behind her stood a teenage girl who looked absolutely mortified. I tried to explain to her that I was just rolling a regular cigarette with tobacco, but she wouldn't listen. She accused me of lying and insisted she knew what MJ looked like. She pulled out her phone and started dialing, all while screaming at the top of her lungs. Her poor daughter just walked away, clearly embarrassed by her mother's behavior. I attempted to reason with her again, explaining that I worked at the store right there and offered to let her check the tin herself. She just kept yelling that I shouldn't move because the police were coming and that I was going to jail for being a drug dealer. At this point, my break was already over and I needed to get back to work. I tried to open my door, but this woman literally sat down against it, blocking me from getting out. When I asked if she was serious, she just yelled into her phone that I was trying to escape and that I had drugs. I looked at my other doors and had an idea. I called out to her, pointing out that modern cars come with 4 doors. I climbed over to the passenger side, causing her to jump up and run around to that side of the car. As soon as she moved, I quickly slid back and got out through the driver's side door. Walking backward toward the store, I kept my eyes on her. She charged at me like an angry bull, but in her rage, she tripped and fell face first onto the pavement. It wasn't a gentle fall either. She hit the ground hard. I offered to help her up, genuinely concerned about her well-being, but she just swatted my hand away and started screaming even louder, if that was possible. Her daughter came running back, trying to calm her down. When the police arrived, she immediately started ranting about my supposed drug dealing and how I tried to escape. The officers separated us, and I showed them my cigarette tin and explained the situation. One of the officers checked my ID and the tin, then went to talk to her. Whatever the officer said must have really set her off because she completely lost it. When her daughter tried to pull her away, she did something I still can't believe. She punched one of the officers in the chest. The next few moments were like something out of Cops. They immediately cuffed her and put her in the back of the patrol car, while she kicked and screamed the whole time. They took her daughter too, probably to call another family member to pick her up. I went back inside and told my boss what happened. Turns out he'd watched the whole thing through the store window and had already called the district manager to report the incident. The store's security cameras caught everything, which came in handy when she tried to file a complaint against me later. And in all that chaos, I never got to have my cigarette. I used to manage a pizza delivery store in this tiny place that recently got downgraded from a city to a town. If that gives you any idea of how small we're talking. Running the closing shift at our store was actually pretty sweet compared to other places I'd worked. After 8 p.m. we'd usually slow down enough that I just needed one driver, and we could start cleaning early to get out quickly after our midnight closing time. But there was this one constant thorn in our side. The local subsidized housing complex. Now, every delivery driver knows these spots usually mean minimal tips, but our particular complex had something special. their very own wannabe cop. This guy would strut around in a security uniform driving a blue light equipped Jeep with apartment police plastered on the side. No gun, no actual authority, but man did he act like he was the sheriff of a small country. I'd hired drivers from other pizza places in town, and they all knew this guy. He had some kind of vendetta against delivery drivers. He'd even put up handwritten 5 mph speed limit signs around the complex. Real professional stuff. One day, my full-time closing driver called me mid-shift. He explained that the complex security guy had pulled him over for supposedly speeding and wanted to talk to me. When I got on the phone, the security guard demanded that I come down to the complex to write up my employee for speeding. I told him I couldn't leave the store and reminded him that he had no authority to detain my driver. He knew I was right but still tried to threaten us, saying he'd call the real police if he caught my driver speeding again. We left it off that day, but the next evening, things got even more ridiculous. We got an order from the complex around 8 p.m. 10 minutes later, my driver called again. He told me he'd parked to make a delivery, and when he came back, the security guy was waiting. The guard had blocked my driver's car in and was insisting on detaining him until real police arrived, claiming he didn't have a parking permit. I told my driver to just wait for the actual police and see what happened. 30 minutes later, my driver returned with quite the story. The real police didn't write any tickets, but they did tell us something interesting. The complex security guard could actually ban people from the property, even if they're there for work. This turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to us. See, this complex was notorious for last-minute orders right before closing. They'd order at 11:55 p.m., then call back to complain about something trivial just to get credit for their next order. Never tipped, of course. These complaints meant we had to pull out all our clean equipment, remake food, and stay an extra 30 to 45 minutes past closing while waiting for the driver to return so we could do the nightly deposit. So now, when we'd get those late-night calls from the complex, the conversations were beautifully simple. When they'd try to order delivery, I'd apologetically explain that their complex security had banned our drivers from the property. When they'd inevitably say they'd pick it up instead, I'd regretfully inform them that our pickup window closed at 10 p.m. for safety reasons and wish them a good night. This started spreading to other delivery places in town. That complex security guard had accidentally created a delivery driver blacklist that saved us all from the worst customers in town. We still laugh about how this wannabe cop's power trip backfired. Instead of making our lives harder, he gave us the perfect legitimate excuse to avoid the most problematic customers in town. No more staying late, no more bogus complaints, no more getting stiffed on tips. All thanks to Officer Power Trip and his handwritten speed limit signs. Those customers eventually complained to the complex management about not being able to get deliveries anymore. But since it was their own security guard who created the situation, there wasn't anything they could do about it. Let me share a wild story from my time working at a home furnishing warehouse. I started there right after finishing my business degree, thinking it would be a stepping stone while I looked for something in my field. The pay was decent, and I actually enjoyed the physical work. It kept me active and the team was great. Within 6 months, I was promoted to inventory specialist, which meant I handled stock management and maintained accurate records of everything coming in and going out. The whole mess started on what seemed like a normal Wednesday. I was unpacking a fresh shipment of furniture when our area manager walked into the warehouse with this customer. She had this plastic-looking bleached blonde hair and wore this expression like she owned the place. The area manager told me to make sure this lady got a free rug of her choice. I responded with hesitation, just muttering an uncertain, "Okay." This woman spent nearly an hour strutting around our warehouse section before picking out this absolutely hideous gray and aqua blue shag rug that honestly looked like something a unicorn would throw up. The area manager made me carry it out to her luxury SUV. When we got back inside, he explained that apparently there was some mix-up with her sofa order, so they decided to give her a free rug to keep her quiet. A month later, I spot the same woman wandering through our warehouse area again. I immediately approached her and told her that this area was for employees only. But before I could escort her out, our area manager appears out of nowhere. He greeted her enthusiastically, mentioning she was here for her free rug. She eagerly confirmed this was why she was there. And just like that, the whole thing repeated itself. Another hour of her browsing, another rug selected, and another trip to her car. After she left, I had to say something. I asked the area manager if he hadn't already given her a rug last month. He denied this, stating that he hadn't. 5 months pass and the area manager comes finding me again. He told me about a customer coming in that weekend, explaining they had messed up her order and would be giving her a free rug. I asked with obvious frustration if this was the rug lady again. He confirmed it was and asked how I knew. I explained that we had already given her 2 rugs. He insisted that when she shows up, I needed to make sure she gets whatever rug she wants. When I protested again about the previous rugs, he just repeated his order more forcefully before storming off. I was fuming. This woman was clearly running a scam and our area manager was either completely incompetent or just didn't care. That's when I decided to play the long game. During my lunch break, I went to our records room and dug up everything. Her original sofa order, the cancellation, her customer service complaints, the first rug approval, and documentation of both subsequent free rugs. I made copies of everything. The next morning, I sent a carefully worded text asking what to do if the rug lady comes in. He responded by telling me to just give her a rug whenever she comes in, exactly as I'd hoped he would. Perfect. When she showed up that afternoon, I helped her pick out another rug with the biggest smile on my face. And when she came back a month later, another rug, and again, and again. 7 more times to be exact. Each time I documented everything and kept the paper trail pristine. 6 months later, during our annual audit, the area manager and auditor were doing their walkthrough when they reached the rug storage area. The auditor's face went pale when he noticed we were missing about $4,000 worth of rugs. As the area manager started panicking, I handed over my collection of documentation. Every visit, every rug, every text message where he explicitly told me to give her a rug whenever she came in. The auditor took one look at the papers and practically ran to the general manager's office. The aftermath was beautiful. The area manager got demoted and transferred to a tiny satellite store in the middle of nowhere. The woman not only got banned from all our stores nationwide, but the company actually took legal action to recover the cost of the rugs. Turns out she'd been selling them online through various marketplace accounts. I got promoted to assistant manager shortly after, and you better believe I made sure every customer satisfaction gesture followed proper protocol from then on. I was always the quiet kid in school. Not by choice really, but because I learned early on that keeping to myself was the safest option. My parents had moved around a lot due to my dad's job in manufacturing, and by the time I landed in this small senior school in 1975, I'd already been to 3 different schools. Being the new kid taught me to blend in. It was just easier that way. This school was different though. With less than 400 boys, there was nowhere to hide, nowhere to become invisible. I still remember my first day there, walking through those iron gates, my too big uniform hanging off my skinny frame. That's when I first saw him, the bully who would make my life hell for the next few months. He was a 6th former, massive for his age, with a reputation that preceded him. The younger kids would scatter when he walked down the hallways. The teachers just looked the other way. It was the 70s after all. Bullying was just considered part of growing up, something to toughen you up. I managed to avoid his radar for almost 2 months. Then one day after a physics class, he cornered me behind the gymnasium. He called me a runt and told me I was his new project. When I asked what he wanted, he laid out his demands. My dinner money and bus fare every single day for a month. And just to make it interesting, he promised to give me a daily beating too. He didn't wait for a response. Just grabbed my collar, took my money, and threw me against the wall. That was day 1. For a week, it was the same routine. I'd try to hide, he'd find me, take my money, and rough me up. I started walking home every day because I couldn't afford the bus anymore. My parents noticed I wasn't eating lunch but assumed I was saving up for something. I was too ashamed to tell them the truth. By Monday of the second week, I was exhausted, hungry, and absolutely done. Fighting back wasn't an option. He was 3 years older, at least a foot taller, and probably weighed twice as much as me. Going to the teachers was useless. They'd already proven they didn't care. Plus, being known as a snitch would only make things worse. That's when I came up with a plan. I knew he kept his stuff in locker number 217. I'd seen him there enough times. The school had this weird honor system. If you were accused of something, you were expected to own up to it. Those who denied wrongdoing and were proven guilty were expelled. Those who admitted their mistakes usually just got detention. Over the weekend, I watched the janitor's routine. He kept the master keys in his office while he cleaned the gym after school. One afternoon, I waited until he was busy with the floors, snuck in, and made an impression of the locker master key in a bar of soap I'd softened. Using my dad's workshop, I managed to make a copy of the key. Then came phase 2. I went to Woolworths and carefully pocketed some expensive items, watches, a wallet, and some jewelry. I felt terrible about stealing, but I was desperate. The next morning I came to school early. The hallways were empty as I used my copied key to open his locker. I planted the stolen goods, carefully arranging them so they'd be visible if the locker was opened. Then I wrote an anonymous note to the headmaster, claiming I'd seen my bully showing off stolen goods. They searched his locker during first period. I could hear the commotion from my math class. When they found the stolen items, he went ballistic. The headmaster confronted him about the items that had been reported stolen from Woolworths, asking for an explanation. The bully erupted in anger, insisting the items weren't his and that someone must have planted them. When the headmaster asked if he was refusing to take responsibility, the bully doubled down, adamantly denying any involvement with the stolen goods. That was the wrong answer. In a school where admitting guilt was the path to lighter punishment, his refusal to own up sealed his fate. He was expelled that same day. I saw him one last time as he was leaving the school grounds, carrying a box with his things. For a moment, our eyes met. I don't know if he suspected me, but the look of defeat on his face told me he knew his reign of terror was over. The younger kids walked a little taller after he left. I heard later that he had his own troubles at home. His father was apparently as much of a bully as he was. But that didn't excuse what he did to us and to me. Would I do it again? Absolutely. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.